Hello? Where's that coming from? Miss Jones! Test. Test. Oh. Let's see.
Okay. Oh, that's right. That's what I thought about after the fact. Like, yeah. How many cases? That's always the case. You shared yet, or you about to share? But Lee didn't even have. Did we bring that for? He had no idea. Yeah. Everyone knows.
Greg, how are you?
What did you go for? I do. Hey, the reps.
You know,
I could have got less of
how this
with the time.
virus calms down again, I'm not,
They were celebrating.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to NBC.
He called everybody.
I've heard some really good news.
Right?
That there's a prediction right now. No masks, no nothing. I don't know. Because the way the virus goes.
Dr. Trent. Dr. Trent.
It's infecting so many people that they're building new ones. They're finally getting the damn heroes. Right, they're getting it with Norcross. It's so contagious.
So it's doing the work for it.
Yeah, it's doing the work for us. So that was one time. Who knows? But I love hearing some good news.
Yeah.
All right. You're gonna have.
Can I sit back here or anywhere else? Don't be nervous. I'll get a chair.
You're fine.
How are you?
Maybe more. Well, it's great that you want to read this.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind. Yeah. I guess you run by today. You get 4. If you run a game by 4 per person.
Which mine are his?
Apple.
I mean, the problem
This thing
is,
is set up.
they won't ship for another 2 to 3 weeks. So by the time they get here,
So,
the person may be.
I just turned mine on, so it's not mine.
Whatever, they've done a good job right now.
Let me see if he has his on.
Right over in,
So they can do a rapid. Yeah, I've got 3 rapids at home. My grandson. Yeah.
Have you ordered some yet? Have you ordered the new free ones? So my wife told me she ordered it. I said, well, should we get some sticks and start practicing for each other in the nose? We don't waste any of those kits. We're Mary Beth, how did she take it? I said she could change your life.
Yeah.
So, because I don't.
No, right.
You know, I've only had it once, but they had both rapid and PCR. As I was going up to visit my daughter, I wanted to know that it was okay. The guy in the office gives me a tissue. He says, "This is on your eyes." My eyes tear up, and I said, "Okay, you know exactly what you're talking about." And I did it for my nose, I did it for my eyes. And then he came back and he said, "Well, the rapid test, there's a negative PCR."
Hello.
I do that too. I do that too. What you just did. Good evening. How are you? Good.
October 11th.
How are you? I think you're there. I mean, you can sit where you want.
That's not working. So I'm gonna let, yeah, that's not working. I think that's too big of a, yeah. It's, I mean, if it was red, that's a bigger discussion, and it's India. I just wanted to get your. Oh, that's good. Don't tell her why. I am, I'm sure, yeah. Don't tell her I suggested.
So we've got 200 grand budget every year for roads.
Yeah, mostly it's staying with a, I think 30%.
So at an 80% rate, that could leverage up, that same amount of money could leverage up to. Well, 80%, right?
So, but we only do, we do like 30,000. Actually, probably below. We're not. Well, we made that one road project. Done now. So that's why we're.
Thank you. Let me know when you're ready.
We're ready, sir. We're ready. Oh,
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
You don't like?
I can try. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our work session. Today is Tuesday, January 18th. Time is approximately 6:36. We'll go ahead and get started with tonight's agenda. I want to all council for being here tonight. Know that there's a lot of places when you sit in tonight. You saw it not robbery, it's kind of showing your citizens. Thank you all for being here and staff. So we'll go ahead and get started with the meeting. Let the record show that all.
Development Authority.
We have a very productive working relationship. I'm personally appreciative of the efforts to enhance the working relationship over the last couple of years. Notably, I want to thank Mayor Newton for his leadership to strengthen our relationship. As uncompensated volunteers, the DDA members have choices on where to invest their time and energy. Though we have the support of the city is an important element for each of us on the DDA. Speaking of the members of the DDA, I want to take a few moments to highlight the strength and experience on the DDA. Serving as vice chair, the longest tenured member of the DDA, John Bemis is an executive vice president with Jones Lake LaSalle. John leads JLL's retail market practice for the southeastern U.S. market. He brings more than 25 years of commercial real estate experience, including the remerchandising and redevelopment of properties. His depth of knowledge, experience, and industry network is a significant asset to the authority and the citizens of Norcross. I know also that his term is expiring in February, and he's already applied for reappointment, and I urge the council to favorably consider his reappointment. Jim Meyer brings more than 35 years of construction and project management experience in the DDA as an executive in the industry. His broad experience in all aspects of finance, feasibility analysis, and project management ensures that the DDA projects carefully consider these important aspects. He manages commercial projects of more than 1 million square feet and tens of millions of construction budgets. As a former council member in a neighboring city, he also brings a helpful understanding of the DDA to the DDA of city process and protocols, the relationship between a development authority and a city council. Tim Maresco has over 25 years of experience in the Atlanta marketplace and is the senior vice president of Cressa Atlanta. For more than 8 years, he has exclusively represented tenants, offering strategic direction and advice to Fortune 100 clients as well as local firms. Tim began his real estate career by working with both landlords and tenants, which provided a real understanding of the differences and motivation of both sides of the transaction. As the co-owner with his wife of the downtown Norcross business, Tim brings a unique perspective and a lived experience to the media. Brendan Frazier is a mechanical engineer licensed in 11 states, specializing in high performance design, green building practices, and energy modeling. His experience extends across multifamily, residential, commercial, government, military, and industrial applications. His capital and project management experience includes bonds for title development, public treasury maintenance, public grant funding, and vertical construction budget from $100,000 to over $100 million. Lauren Summers is an experienced real estate agent focusing on the Norcross residential market, representing buyers, sellers, and investors. As a small business owner, Lauren brings both personal and professional interests in the economic development of Norcross. And of course, as the council representative for the EDA, Josh Fair's experience as president of Arbornomics Turf brings a multifaceted experience, institutional knowledge, and informed perspective to the authority. Josh's commitment to economic development and his presence on the authority is instrumental to the strong working relationship we now have with the city council. Will Shipley supports the DDA as the operations manager. His experience in construction and project management keeps the authority on point with the operation and maintenance of our properties. Collectively, the assembled expertise offers the city of Norcross and her citizens an impressive knowledge base, project experience, and industry network to fulfill the work of the authority. Few authorities around the metro Atlanta region have the breadth and depth of relevant experience. Regarding the work of the authority, as you know, we supported and facilitated economic development and redevelopment projects, including the Brunswick, the South End, and the Cotton Gin. We currently manage the Cotton Gin leasing and building operations, as well as 128 Lawrenceville Street and 145 Brent Avenue. The support through the IGA we've received from the city to operate and maintain these facilities is much appreciated, and we're grateful for the productive working relationship. Thanks to Mary Beth Bender and the entire public works team for their assistance. Regarding the Cotton Gin, I'm pleased to report the local peach is now fully performing on the lease obligations to the authority, and they have received their certificate of occupancy. I anticipate they will open for business in early February. This will be a welcome addition to our community, and I encourage and hope you will take the opportunity to drop by once it opens. As we look to the future, the authority is excited to work with the mayor, council, and staff on the Buford Highway Master Plan and the vision for the future of this important corridor. The authority is focused on the corridor between Lively Avenue and Summer Hour Street from Buford Highway to South Peachtree Street. We are eager to continue to work with the council to identify and pursue the acquisition of strategic parcels in this target area as we have opportunity. I also want to applaud the council's consideration this evening for the Art Livable Center Initiative application, Town Center, later in this evening's agenda. As a member of a Gwinnett County Community Improvement District, I know how important these initiatives are and important tools for economic development. So I encourage favorable consideration for that. In conclusion, I personally appreciate the support of William Corbin, Kate Kitchen, and the operations of the authority. Their expertise, diligence, and love to consider assets for the authority. And on a personal basis, they are each a delight to work with, and we're blessed with their contributions to the authority. Thank you again for this opportunity. I'm happy to respond to any specific questions.
Thanks so much for that presentation. Council, do you have any questions at this time? I'd just like to say again, thank you for your leadership here at the meeting. That certainly moved the deal, and we appreciate what you and the better place for everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Monique, I'll email you this for the.
Okay, let's move to general update.
Good evening. All right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here on behalf of this kitchen tonight.
Let's try to deal with the feedback at the microphone.
We're having sort of a Jimi Hendrix.
Um,
Reverb.
So on behalf of this kitchen tonight, we got able to be here for Charlie. She was wanting to give you an update. There's been some issues with the trolley making the full route every night. You know, they left the battery or something else, we not looked at. The last few weekends, we have had 0 riders. And we did not budget for overtime, which is an issue of in the stormwater department. In case they come back for direction on what's going to do with the trolley, but just want to give you an update that we're not having riders and it's cold outside. The overtime is an issue, and trolley making that full route is an issue. We have to stop, get a van, and come back and put the rest of it.
If they shorten the route, would they have the same kind of range problem?
No, I think if they shorten it, that will help. It's making it a good while, but then it just stops.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but we did try to get them to keep track on riders. I want to say the last 2 weeks, many riders, maybe more than that.
That's not good.
I think the thought was that maybe when we get closer to the spring, when the days get longer, that it's not cold or dark, that because
It might change them.
an opportunity to figure out what's wrong with the electrical system. If there is anything we can do, we don't know. But the overtime is an issue. We're spending money that we plan to spend.
Yeah, I think into the vein of Steve Mary, like, do you have any recommendations for council outside of, I think that there obviously those are all legitimate issues. Do we have any recommendations? It sounds like changing the timeframe when we do the ridership in terms of season might be one. There might be some other. I'd be interested to hear what the recommendations are on that.
It's suspended right now.
Right now it is.
Yeah.
So we can go back to the direction.
Yeah, I mean,
You can get another update from you, whatever analysis you have to do on overtime, problem repairs, whatever maintenance. You got some time to do.
It'll be further on in the budget too. So we'll go on to the
So you're suggesting we suspend for how long?
I don't know if I should speak on behalf of Kate, but I think that the consensus is over how long?
Yes, for how long?
To the spring, maybe April.
Don't tell April first. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just as a conversation piece, I think, I take a look at potentially some of the events we have in the city. And outside of those events, suspending it, you know, until April, if you recommend April, but, if we've got events, let's say the Easter egg, or we've got some other event in the city that might be a way to use that. You know, before then, I think we should look at those events as an option, but outside of those events, probably could suspend normal ridership, that normal schedule.
I would do that. Thank you very much.
One other question. The vehicle itself, I don't know, if the intent of purchasing that vehicle, it's, stand type of use that was, avoid. I don't know if it was really designed to be a storage.
My
Because we did
understanding,
have more of an industrial type use. Tourist.
and that's my understanding for that, but there's a suggestion that we do that, try to do that, if it works, we come to the challenge.
Which may lead us to another type of a vehicle that's designed for what we're doing to run that transit route. Only staff that let us know, if that is- or you just do.
Do we have staff for a report on that? Let us know. If we're improperly using the vehicle.
We voted on it right before you and I took office. My intention was it would always be used for some sort of, a people transport.
Yeah. But what I'm suggesting is maybe they could get a hold of the manufacturer and find out if we're properly using it, if it's not really designed for what we thought it was designed for.
We'll do that, we'll reach out to them, and see what their recommendations are.
Yeah.
It's under warranty, so.
Maintenance agreement or anything that we can follow up with. I'm sorry, a maintenance agreement that signed with the manufacturer or whoever we bought it from.
I'll follow up on that.
I think we get another grant for another one. We got a pretty big grant for that.
All right, we'll come back with, reach out to the manufacturer.
Tuesday, break up.
Okay. Feedback and directory.
In reference to impact and directory, I had a discussion with our city manager about utilizing the directory because it's unutilized right now. And in partnering with Kate at the Welcome Center, impact and community, I see some great collaboration in using the directory for arts events. Any questions?
Yeah, what kind of event?
Whatever arts related, we'll partner with Kate, make sure we have a year calendar set up. We already, Impact already have about 2 or 3 events that we're looking to do. We just have to get dates together.
So
So it's
you
anything arts related,
should be using it like a gallery?
whatever
This
arts.
is, I'm sorry, this is used right now for.
That's, I mean, there was, it's been used as a historical or fashion art or
Well,
whatever, right?
there's several events and other things.
Mhm.
It's really nice, cultural events, and it's a perfect place for it. So, sounds like you're continuing to do
What we were planning to do from the get-go with our arts building. And this could also lead to eventually our arts and cultural center in the future. This is a springboard. Question? You know, I don't want to talk too much.
You're fine. Any questions?
Any questions? I like questions.
How much room is there in that building?
I haven't been in there since we did the yarn wall. Oh my gosh.
pretty nice size. It's got a second floor that's not used. Yeah, so, there's some rafter issues.
Oh, structural problems?
Well, it's all out of structural problems, but
But there are about 3 rooms downstairs, because I remember we had an event where each artist was in a specific room. So it can be used for separate.
But several years ago, Florida.
Right, and spend money to repair it, to bring it back to use, pretty much. I remember that. The Norcross Arts Alliance. Any more questions?
Okay, council general discussion. Council, you have anything to bring this up?
Just one comment. In our most recent storm, Norcross Power did a great job keeping the lights on. I understand Georgia Power didn't do so well, but we shine in comparison, so congratulations, Norcross Power.
Any other comments from council? I'll just make one comment. I want to recognize the groundbreaking that we have last week with the Pines organization. One of our 4 major gateways was very well attended, staff did a very good job of pulling that together. And we thank you so much for your work in making that happen. It was, like I said, it was great attendance, roughly 40 attendees. For those that don't know, what's going to happen there, corner Street Industrial, City Park Boulevard. 144 residential retail units are going up. And the organization is Pines organization. There's roughly 50 years of experience within that organization, over 900 million investment in their existence. And we think we put pretty good teammate to move that corner forward. So that's just the beginning of that corner. So look for some good things to have there in the corner of Street of City Park Boulevard. I thank Mayor Pro Tem Matt Myers for attending, and staff there too. Thank you also the city manager. Yes.
Also, we had our first coffee with council this past Saturday, and we had it at a new location. So 30% is going wrong.
Bruce, what is it? Dulce?
Dulce Sueños.
Dulce Sueños. And we're looking to move around the city for the next couple of months. So look out for more information about our coffee with council kitchen.
Very good. And yeah. I don't think we have any. I think it was great several years ago. How many years ago?
And Josh and I started that back in the secret meeting started. And then
We fixed that. It's no longer.
Pierre Levy had just been elected, so.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for that. Okay, let's move on. City manager's report.
So I want to add my thanks to economic development for a great groundbreaking. That's what we want to see in the city. Bring more people to our community, and ultimately we get the budget process. We appreciate the tax revenue that will be spent on the community. Want to also tag team on the comment about this weekend. We had Public Works, maybe Parks, Stormwater, I don't know all the people that were out, but literally had people housed here over the weekend so that they didn't have to take time to respond. Unfortunately, that resulted in them getting fed, because a lot of times when they have events, they go without eating for a very long time. But we were very successful in being prepared for the storm. When they have the opportunity to do it again later this week, but a lot of kudos to Mary Beth for having everybody ready to go deal with it. Yes. The EMCs also had problems. So we shine. Everybody may know, but COVIDtest.gov is now open and people can get 4 free tests sent to their address. They say 7 to 12 days, but I imagine with the millions of people that have already been online, that they may be hard pressed to meet that turnaround time. But
I heard that there was as much traffic, there was more traffic on that site than any other government site ever. So it's like almost 1 million people.
I can't think of
And then finally, I want to just point out if there's anyone that hasn't heard, the green certification, we retained platinum, and that's an incredible event. It took years of work by the community, working through some of our SNC members, but other volunteers, and a lot of work by staff to get all that documentation together. But incredible event, and they sent us some additional materials, I think, so that we can highlight one of the areas they wanted to highlight this in the park, all the activities in the park. So, yeah, thanks for that. And the good news is that certification lasts for 3 more years. Tracy's already started to think about what it takes to get the next one, right, Tracy?
My understanding is we really knocked it out of the park.
We were so good that they mentioned that they refer others to this community to get ideas. And we had the highest number of items, I think, out of 62 different areas where you could get credit. We had, out of 80, we had 62. So great effort, and basically working on how we can safely in this COVID environment celebrate the people responsible for it. So, that's it for me. Thank you.
We don't want to skip over board appointments, so we'll discuss that. Then let's move down to other items for discussion. Start with one amendment to ordinances, constitution related offenses.
Good evening and happy New Year. So periodically, actually both this item and the noise ordinance side, periodically, things come to our attention that need addressed in a way that we realize that we don't have the tool to address them. And our tool is generally either ordinance or state law. And this particular one in regards to prostitution, there's a loophole. This is the best way to say it. Pat might give us a better legal description of it. But a loophole that the city of Dunwoody identified in some prosecutions that they were attempting there in their city. The defense counsel there was questioning the public nature of hotel properties. And so what we did was I sent it over to Pat John, and they agreed that the violation locations in a place open to the public were what was being challenged. The elements existing ordinance provided that the city must prove that it occurs in a public place, and that terminology does not exist. So the proposed ordinance before you tonight covers 2 separate parts to what is missing, one of which is the location, be it the hotel room or the parking lot, or it could be a vehicle, it could also be a house, it could be any location that's defined as just a place or as defined as a house that will name. But that kind of takes us away from it having to be in a public place, which is what our current ordinance would only apply to. And the second is defining the acts that would be in violation of the law that would be in a public place or a place that is normally open to the public. And so that's what you have. So this is in addition to our section 28, we entitled section 28-6, prostitution of related offenses.
Chief, so before we begin with the additional question, before we begin, what's your ask?
To enact 28-6. So it's a new section.
Okay. Then we'll open the floor up for some additional questions. Those what they ask you. It looks like we're-
Just like, sort of occurred to me that this is already in state law, isn't it?
In a way, yes. But we want to charge it locally, which we do. We would open ourselves up to, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, to this loophole.
So we're aligning that to state law as much as we can.
Yes, and so that we can charge it.
Right. For that reason.
Any other questions? I'm sorry. The floor is on. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you so much. We'll certainly move back to the regular council for whatever. Thank you.
I have a second item as well.
Yes. Go right ahead.
All right. The second item here is actually Tracy and I, as well as Pat and John as well. This is the same type of scenario where we have identified a couple of missing parts to local ordinance. One of which, as many of you know, with fireworks. The state of Georgia went back and forth a couple of times over the last several years. They finally landed on a certain number of days in the year and times that fireworks are permitted. As it stands right now with our city ordinance, we would not be able to charge locally anyone that was doing it today, for example. Or tell them they can't do it, because our local ordinance permits it any day, all day. So what this, the first part of this change to the city's existing noise ordinance that we're asking for addresses noise produced by consumer fireworks. And it would restrict it to only the days allowed by state law, which are in the ordinance. Secondly, as everyone knows, we have this ongoing issue with exhibition of speed or street racers, or my neighbor calls it the donuts in the intersection problem. One of the things that we are struggling to enforce is loud vehicles without proper mufflers and so forth. And that's the second addition to this. And this puts us in line with Gwinnett County too. So the verbiage here is identical to Gwinnett County. And that's what is going on for us. So we're asking for these two sections, it's 26-21 section D and 26-21 section J. You have anything to add to that?
No, this one would be a public hearing. What we normally do. Really, we see the zoning issue, there has to be a public hearing for this particular adoption.
So I have a couple of questions that I need to know on.
Go ahead.
The first one, I guess you may have answered, but it certainly makes sense to me that there's fireworks on January 1st, July 3rd, July 4th. Labor Day and Memorial Day are not normal fireworks days.
I don't disagree. But those are specifically stated in
That's in
state
state
law.
law. We don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice.
Okay, now, that was my first note. The second note is when there's on the exclusions, it says that the prohibitions of this section shall not apply to the following: noises or sounds caused to be made by manufacturing, which has been an issue in some parts of the city where commercial manufacturing areas are very close to residential areas. And is that something we're forced to maintain, or can we also regulate manufacturing?
Well, specific to the other sections that you're talking about, ordinance, with regards to that, those were put in there based on real world problems we were seeing, and we were being called out. I have to get more information on exactly where those dates and time, where the times and distances came from. But I can say definitively that since we added those sections, probably a couple of years ago.
Yep.
We haven't had any more, Rich. So at least not brought to my attention. So I can say that it is working as it is. But to get specifics, it's kind of where all that came from and that I have to do that.
Okay, well, this is just talking about we're excluded from regulating noise in manufacturing, governmental or commercial entities in the normal course of their business.
Can you tell me where those?
So I'm looking at E1.
Yeah, unless Pat's got the way in on that, I have to give the answer. As far as, do we do this for a reason? Or do we do this for a specific reason? What is that?
That was my question.
Yes.
What was that?
I don't know.
Are we required? Is this part of state law that is preempted, or what's going on with that?
Very similar in that same vein, because it's right under the fireworks one, so we got to, agree with that. I think it's the same thing. I thought about commercial landscaping, leaf blowers and stuff. There's a certain time ordinance there, but this says they're excluded. So there's some, in my view of reading, there's some conflict in the same document itself. Just because commercial entity doing their business in the normal course of business would be, I was in landscaping, I'd be doing my normal course of business hours, right? I felt like there's conflict there that maybe we could address, or maybe there's.
I think we had a similar conversation when the runs.
Yes, and Hyundai, you're not fully on council to deal with the noise.
Right.
So, you're fully initiated. I'm gonna let y'all tackle this. We have tackled this in every way.
Well, I mean, from an ordinance perspective, it should be consistent. We can't, on the one hand, say you can't do it, and on the other hand, say you're excluded. So unless there's something that I'm missing, that's entirely possible.
Right, I mean, there's some recent state statutes that we have to say this, but I have no clue. It just seems like.
This passed legal, last time we voted on.
Yeah.
I mean, we have any problems.
Pat, what's your comment on the inconsistency?
On the inconsistency is past me, but I see what you're saying, but this is what's being used by Lawrenceville and England. So, this tribe and success.
Yeah, and it appears based on our chief,
It works.
it's working.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to change it. I just felt like that's inconsistent
Well,
because it says
I was getting the answer.
yeah, I mean, it would be better if it wasn't inconsistent unless there's a reason for it. And because a lot of hard work goes into law enforcement, and only if something gets thrown out because of an inconsistency in our ordinance, whether or not it's parroting or copying other jurisdictions, we should have an explanation for that. So, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? You can bring that back. Councilmember Bailey.
Oh, yes, Commissioner. Not just certainly the diversity, but on Christmas Eve, sounded like the words way up until like 1 o'clock at least. And I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm on, but celebrate just having an ordinance isn't going to change this year. Do we have any kind of like a PR plan or anything like that, or try to push that out? Because there'd be
The
no
answer
way
is
to
yes.
cover the whole city.
Yeah, that's a definite. In fact, we probably need to do it multiple times, even before every holiday, quite frankly, not just every holiday where it's permitted. I agree with that.
Or the ultimate solution, our state legislators need to do something.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is, no ordinance is going to prevent it. It just allows us to do, to stop to it.
Well, I mean, the state legislature changed the firework law 5 years ago. We never had fireworks until 5 years ago. So.
And then again, we rejected that. So they're, these are moving parts themselves.
Okay, this is something I brought up to Eric. It's not, it has nothing to do with fireworks, but we have the noise ordinance in front of us. It actually has to deal with section F here. In the city of Norcross, we don't apply to this 9 PM to 8 PM. So our leaf blowers are able to start at 7 AM. Doesn't seem fair that our citizens have to abide by a rule. This is a policy question, Bill, so doesn't seem fair that our citizens have to abide by a rule that the government by the people doesn't have to abide by this rule. So I'd love for us to have a built-up discussion around that and see if, you remember our discussion about that, Eric?
Yes, sir.
So that would, I'd love to, we could get this with one fell swoop and get everything until the next 2 years go by and we deal with noise ordinance again. That'd be nice.
Councilor, you're right, it is.
It's every 2 years.
That's the conflict that I was talking about, by the way. It says landscaping, you do landscaping, but the exclusion is governmental, right? So
Yeah.
That's the conflict. It's like, you can't have a leaf blower at 7 AM unless you're governmental or
Yeah,
commercial.
we gotta, that's the, well, no, commercials can't start the way.
Well, that's where I was.
See, that's what the.
The conflict in
Exclusion,
section E,
the conflict
it says in normal course of their business. What is
Yeah,
the
I read this as, the prohibit, this, we are limiting landscape maintenance devices. We are limiting that in construction, we're limiting, so we're not prohibiting them from doing it, we're limiting the time frame which they can.
Absolutely, I agree, but the way I read section E, which is the exclusion above it, it says noises and sounds caused by manufacturing, usually that's at a facility, which you can consider home manufacturing, governmental, which we just talked about, and commercial entities, which would be landscaping companies. In the normal.
Guys, we're not arguing about this,
We're just talking.
like, we have dealt with this every 2 years, so we've done it 6 times. This is what we finally got to. You may see a conflict, I don't see a conflict, mostly because I am burdened by institutional knowledge of how we got here.
Yeah.
Let's let staff try to figure it out, and let the lawyers who have already vetted this, figure it out again and see if we can eliminate.
Your point, you're saying that it's prohibited.
Except, we're not prohibiting, we're limiting.
So I guess my question, if you want us to come back, is, so we're clearing leaves in the
At
downtown
7:30
area.
in the morning, and I can't clearly.
True, and we're doing that for businesses in the downtown area to do that before they open.
Yeah.
And my
Or
understanding,
anywhere. They're
Mary
all-
Beth is behind you, so I'm looking for the nod.
Yeah.
We do that to help facilitate having them ready to do business at 8 or 9 when they open. We do the same thing here. We have a municipal court that starts early
Josh would be
on,
happy with
so-
us moving it down to 7, but that's what he was clear about last time. But I
we
just
just
think
need,
if our-
we need a sense of what you want, because we can reprice having our contractor come later. But we're a bigger entity than you having someone come mow your yard, where they might be able to have some flexibility. We probably have less, but, we'll respond to whatever direction
I think
you want to
there's
give us.
a
But there's
conflict
probably
here.
a price for doing so.
Yeah, I think the conflict here, besides the fireworks, is that ultimately, this isn't written really well. People are, it needs to be written a little bit better, but ultimately, rules that apply to me should apply to them. I mean, in fact, the only person who the rules really apply to is me, because I know the rules. The average citizen doesn't know the rules.
So I'd be in favor of discussing, extending those hours to fit within what the city is doing, in my opinion. But, obviously we would have to hear from our constituents And I think that's
A lot,
important
a
too.
lot of people are still asleep at 7 o'clock in the morning.
I agree. On Saturday, I am.
I would say this is something I
Saturday.
get more complaints about, and people have suggested the government should encourage Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's a lot that goes into this. These things just go to your neighbors and say, hey, I'm gonna go on the same schedule. But there's a lot of frustration about leaf blowers. There's questions about banning leaf blowers in the city of Norcross Township. We have to do something to limit this. We got people go crazy.
One of the things that we talked about. Is unintended consequences. We have. How's it gonna impact businesses? Our neighbors.
This is as a general rule, these sections have been found to be enforceable with regard to the exclusions and the items suggested there. We can always narrow it down, the same times on as others, but we have found that this is enforceable. This is not enforceable. And then, if you want us to look at streamlining exclusions, some other things, party hours, or whatever, leaf blowers, we can do that.
I think we're all over the place here. I think we should, there's two issues, and I think we're gonna struggle to get Bill direction and Eric direction. So how does council want to handle it? Do we want to take this to our next policy work session, so there's enough time to get all this done? Or do we want to deal with the fireworks and next policy work session, try to deal with all of this?
Can I make a suggestion? Can we let the ordinance and the legal stuff work on its track? And issues with city contracts with the leaf blowers or whatever other issues that are at odds with ordinance, can we deal with that separately?
That's exactly what I said.
Oh, okay, that's not the way I heard it, but if we just separate it, let the ordinance go in its own way, and then maybe the next policy work session, we can have a discussion about our own city contracts.
Is there any, is that doable, Eric? How would you
Well, I think
prefer?
if you came back and said, we don't make noise until 8 o'clock, we're not mowing parks, we're not blowing leaves downtown or here, I mean, we can administratively implement that. We'll come back and talk to our vendors, find out what the cost might be, but we would still be compliant with the ordinance. We would simply be voluntarily limiting when we create noise based on your direction. And I mean, that might be the best. I mean, we have to figure out how that kind of works, because we've been trying to get the leaves out of the city hall parking lot before everybody shows up for work or for court. But, you know, we can change that. And if we do it administratively, you get feedback that people say, we don't like that after all, we're doing it administratively, you have to change the ordinance. We just modify how we behave. So, I mean, I would suggest you're not making anyone more constrained than you have control over, because it's your own organization. So maybe go forward with this, give us that sense. We can come back and talk to the vendors about what the cost might be, and you can see what the downtown businesses think about it, because I understand they're one of the groups that we try to accommodate in the past, as well as the people that are coming forward. But we can change that. That's within our control.
Can the two of you get this reworked based on feedback here in time for our regularly scheduled meeting? Vote on it? Okay, that's exactly what.
So the only thing that would require us to go back and modify this ordinance outside of fireworks, which I think is consensus here, is if we extend that.
We can definitely debate.
Well, you can make that decision
Otherwise,
2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we can debate. I mean, we can, if it's in front of us, we can just say, we also change section E or section F.
One of the values of this administrative. Debate session to evaluate the situation. Without comes back to the council in the next, regular session. And next
And on that point, we could do it change it at Thrasher, at downtown places where truly we're impacting residential. And I know I can look out my window and see a couple of residential properties, but you might decide that it's okay to do City Hall parking lot, but it's not okay to be out in parks where we're cutting grass.
I'm fine not blowing through your apartment person.
But one size won't fit all.
I mean, that's administrative. Yeah, available parking, you do it 6 a.m. if you want to. And then they come over here, do this at 7, and then they do impact today. I mean, I'm sure our vendor can work it out. If not, that, why change? Sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay, Chief, so PR on that. Still gonna get the answers, where this came from. Anything else?
Right, I mean, Councilman Rivera mentioned, Christmas Eve, right? Is that, I'm not, it's not culturally familiar to me that Christmas Eve is the day we do fireworks for me, so I'm not certain, but I've heard them, and I don't know, is that something that we've seen a problem on that particular day?
Oh, yeah, yes. So Christmas Eve would be prohibited.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, there's no.
It would be excluded. You would not be able to shoot them off.
Right, right.
It's Christmas Eve allowed by state.
Right, it's not allowed here.
Yeah. I mean,
We'd be following state law.
yeah, you're calling.
All other days, all other days.
Yeah, but the communication piece is key to.
This is a state law. And a city law.
So what I would suggest is that before those days, if we know people are wanting to do it.
How about no firing?
We already have laws.
Yeah, but how about we make sure that, that goes out at the same time?
Okay, Chief, clear? Yes, sir. All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's move to item 3. Update to Nelson and OCL.
Wouldn't be the winner if I was. We had a very productive meeting with Jared Lombard from the Atlanta Regional Commission last month. It was myself, city manager, and assistant city manager. And we wanted to update us on the fact that there's going to be a lot of money coming down the pipe as it relates to electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And he reminded us that we're getting close to being due for an update to one of our 2 LCIs. And he pointed out that as a result of the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, EV charging is going to be a focus, and funding will be available through Surface Transportation Block Grant Program for infrastructure and community chargers as an allowable expense and implementation. It's also anticipated there's going to be a regional electrification plan coming out this year. So he asked us if we consider doing that in updates for our town center LCI and putting an application on this call project. We talked to them and figured that it would probably cost around $200,000 to do a study. I know that sounds like a heavy ask for their funds, but deliverables for this particular project would include locations for EV charging infrastructure, identifying demand for EV in the immediate term, 5 years and 10 years into the future, identifying EV infrastructure needs, help with development of codes, updates and incentives for development of residential addition of appropriate infrastructure for EV charging, and other benefits to pursuing this particular update. This time would include expanding the original LCI study area to include both sides of the highway, relying on the recently completed highway master plan, and to also address quick pedestrian safety improvements in the corridor, in addition to identifying long-term fixes, including building pedestrian crossings in the downtown. Once again, we estimate a study of this magnitude, if awarded, would probably cost around $200,000 with 8-20% match. The impact of our budget would be it's estimated that we would get a contract back if we were selected for this application process sometime in July. So the $40,000 invitation would be budget in the next fiscal year. So if we move ahead with this and pass a resolution supporting the application, we would put it in the fiscal year. But given for EV charging is becoming just a understanding what our infrastructure needs are going to be probably be helpful. And given our recent platinum sustainability award, focusing on EV charging over the next planning horizon will probably be very beneficial to us, especially if we can get some infrastructure reimbursed through the SDG.
Question.
First, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. I personally been very on EV charging, how we improve our city from a smart city standpoint. The question I have is, eventually more for power, considering we own the infrastructure in our community, are there any other further grants availability? And it's really kind of a question twofold here. From the power standpoint, as we work with our NEAG and ECG, do they have anything further to help the 40,000? Because part of that study is going to electric. So that might be something to investigate. But I mean, obviously, this is a bargain deal, 200,000 out of that 40 for something that I think is consistent with our comp plan and will be the direction we take.
I spoke with our grants coordinator today, sort of just laying the foundation for him that he's doing some amount of work on the application, assuming that the resolution will be supported in a few weeks. And he's going to look at multiple ways that we might be able to qualify for getting additional funds, what we may qualify for. We're looking at the network of what we might be able to apply.
I agree. It sounds great to be, we got LCI grants there 4 or 5 years in a row on the ARC. What about someone got a grant from? I did an LCI study, is that an ARC grant?
Well, we are requesting money for the Greenway, and so those are actually federal transportation dollars administered through the LCI program. So that award has been on the sort of around $11 million total. So we've got consistent LCI funding for a number of years, not only for studies, updating studies, but actually for implementation process. So the Greenway is an implementation.
What about the LCI? We'll come on both of them, but the LCI target area at Brick Hollow, Jimmy Carter, Indian Trail, and 85. You have an LCI study area there. Is it time to update that? Or is it going to mention that?
What happened was when we did our community work program, we timed both of those to happen in this 5-year planning horizon. And actually, from a timing perspective, the activity center was kind of earlier, but it's just really interchangeable which one we want to do first. This one's a bit more the funding mechanism they have.
Okay.
Suggestion of ARC that, maybe we go ahead. Let's start moving this down, especially in light of the legal.
I think that's very, I agree 100%, but I don't want East Norcross and some investments that are being out for it in that area to fall off the radar for the NDA or for here, because we have an LCI in place. To start looking at those projects. We haven't done a single project of it. So that was pre your term.
And one suggestion came from somebody who was working on some of the projects over there for the transportation projects. So if we really wanted to be involved, is one, 2 of them into one massive study. Obviously, the bigger study.
That's more than $40,000.
That's more than $40,000. So, it's just one of those things that we could probably do it, but it would be so complicated for us to do it and how much it would cost. So, is it reasonable to make small ones cost $200,000? Sometimes bigger possibility. So it's just one of those things we want to time it out. The bad thing is if you submit one application, you submit 7 applications. It doesn't mean that we come back a year from now.
We'll see that. I'll work with the city manager and you and see if we can speed this up for next year so that we can start doing it that fun. If it's really a unique cycle. Norcross was very successful at it. Apply for a study, apply for implementation. And we were very successful because we implemented the study. We just didn't stay on the shelf, so.
And it's just, you know, right now we're just equipping authorities, so it would be reasonable to expect to be,
Any additional?
I have a question, Mayor. So I'm trying to understand the $200,000 study, is it an update of the LCI as it stands, or is it just focus on that?
It's an update to the existing LCI plan, the expansion to include the sites of Euclid Highway and the EV infrastructure.
So what if you merely looked at the electric side of it? Electric infrastructure, some of the things we haven't done before. I like the idea of looking, of tying it to the Buford Highway Master Plan and looking at both sides of Buford Highway. Rather than updating the entire LCI, would it be feasible to do a more focused study? Would you still be eligible for grants for that?
We probably have to look for alternative funding sources. We don't know that the LCI program is set up to do just EV charging unless it's tied in with the existing LCI. So we might be on our to fund that. Or if they come up with a separate funding pool through this surface transportation block grant, then you know you might have to look at something different. But it was their suggestion that if we're going to do the LCI update, is to marry the two, and cover it under the LCI.
And the last time we updated was 3-4 years ago, you said?
It was probably at least 5,
Oh,
at
5
least
years
7
ago.
or 8. So
Okay.
it's definitely time to.
It's time to update
adjust all
anyway.
this.
Okay.
It's just the back to what Tracy was saying, they were really pushing that it was time to do it. And what's nice about this proposal is simply that they've included several things that we're interested in. The EV chargers, the fact that recognizing that Buford Highway is both sides of the corridor, they're looking at pedestrian improvements, and the chief is still here, and when I asked him a few weeks ago about what was the least safe route for the city, it's Buford Highway, in terms of the challenge to pedestrians. So this just ties so many things together into an update and getting 80% funding.
We looked at a deliverable about speed limits on the highway. And impact that might have on. And we've been talking for a while about lowering the speed limit on the highway.
So would that be something we could roll into the study?
I think we could, because that becomes a fix for the safety improvement, and that would be a short-term fix. And then we address that, and you know, we actually sort of have here the GDOT for those federal funds. So,
Sure.
add it in.
That's what the other person I
Good point.
lied quite a bit about.
Piggybacking off of Councilmember Dixon, for East Norcross, could our get, but we get a list of the LCI areas for that study for that area?
Okay, so it looks like we're moving forward. One last question between
It would be fiscal year 2023 as the line.
Okay, any other additional questions? Let's move to, thank you. So, let's move to the next item. Item 4, let's see, Brundage basketball court options.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, my. You look so good too. You look so good.
No workers' comp injury, please.
That swag came up in.
Good evening, Mayor Council. Everyone here?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. All right, so, last year, we had a couple of incidents at West One, 350 Hockey Street. led up for today, actually discussing, two options. One of the options that was suggested was dividing the court into two. One of them being a half basketball court, another half being a pickleball court. For four, that actually, is constructed. Four things have to happen, and that consists of pressure washing the board, filling in cracks, and also putting, two types of coating before anything is strike down to correct those two, types of courts. So I don't know if I need to go into detail, but just give you a sum. We wanted to do the basketball court, and basketball court, and the pickleball court. We'll get round up to, 8450, which is also total amount, but also adding, dividing barrier between to prevent any conflict between the two sports going on. That would minimize all the friendly conflict and both users doing two different sports at the same time. Option two was pickleball court. All three pickleball court, our court, existing court is 9550. I should show it to you all. It's 9550. Based off that coverage, we're able to fit three pickleball courts. As far as talking to different individuals in the community in that area, having long conversation, they're all in favor of actually having pickleball, the sport of pickleball, with an investment, or those due to the fact of kind of minimizing some of the unwanted attention we've had in for a while. As we go to the next slide with the diagram on it, to kind of give a better visual. So everyone get an idea of what I'm describing. Detail, right here. So the dimension of a pickleball court is 20 by 44. So when I was saying 9 by 50 is the dimension of how many courts can actually fit on the court. As you can see, I'm not sure what to see over here in this one. But, and also this option one, I was describing the right according to two, have two different sports we wanted to do there. End of the day, it's going to be a cost issue. We didn't budget for it, based off of your conversation among each other and choosing the best option for the community to actually move forward with what you think would be appropriate for the community, and bringing in new users, and also minimizing calls for Bill and his team as well. So, anyone have any questions? This one.
We can debate the policy of it in just a second, but it seems to me based upon the drawings here, to throw that up one page. Maybe down to the, right there. Okay, Michael, I'm struggling to see why we can't have two pickleball courts and a basketball.
Based on the dimension of the court, it's 24 by 20.
I know, I see three over here on the right.
Right.
And I truly see, I mean, why can't we make the basketball court a little smaller? Maybe move the pickleball, the two pickleballs closer together. And then if council so chooses, we don't have to, we can have regulation pickleball courts. Let me tell you, kids play basketball everywhere they can.
Right.
And if it's a smaller court, it's going to ensure the kids are more likely to play on it, because the pro men are going to want to have a full court. So is it possible to draw this where maybe our courts, the basketball side is a little smaller, but we get two pickleball courts? So if the council says that.
Yeah, if you decide to do that, totally minimize the size of like we had mentioned.
So just so I'm clear, you would take two of those courts and turn them perpendicular to where they are?
Yeah, so this is that.
Yeah.
I just didn't want you to be embarrassed. So can we? Okay.
So there you're turning it.
Yeah, so we keep this exactly like it is here. And condense this just a little bit. I mean, that's over half of the pickleball court right here in this space. We're able to condense this just a little bit. We have a line straight down here. We have, I mean, that's a full size basketball court. It just seems to me that we shouldn't have to pick 3 of these or 1 and 1. Seems that there should be, we should be able to get 3 places where people can interact with our parks and rec.
You can do that, as far as just looking at the side of the court, what's to work with. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know I'm interrupting you a little bit, but, this particular area, and we kind of discussed it, there's a construction going on, kind of partially through.
Yeah, there's a house behind house visible.
Yeah, so from my perspective, to satisfy what your thoughts here are in trying to make that goal work, we're not limited to a regulation basketball court size. So if we just make it bigger, we can fit 2 pickleball and a half courts.
What I would, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. However, I would also, another solution to say, this is really a neighborhood basketball court. You and I played there together. Sharon, you remember we used to have lots of little kids coming out there. We just run it full court on the side. So it's half the side. There's a total 2, 4, 6 goals. We limit it to 2 and it's a half court run. The kids can play back and forth. Most adults aren't doing that. Especially today's NBA where it's all about that.
That's important, you know, also, not attractive to come, because that's the issue we have, and it became apparent for all of us, including the ones that stay there. Pickleball, was the top of being the choice of at that point, being president, just to kind of eliminate everything, that's been called.
Do we have our park master plan with us? We should probably look at our park master plan. We prioritize the people want in our community. If pickleball's way up there, basketball's way down here, it's a brainer. I get a feeling that's probably not the case.
And that was just based off of a recent incident, we had a kind of alter to, with a high volume, supposed to be addressable.
Yeah.
It looks like you need to bring back a couple of I would consider that.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about pickleball. I don't play personally.
Growing like
It's the number 1 growing sport in America. I'm sure our park master plan had no clue that it was going to be the number 1 growing sport in America. So it might not show up on there.
Start at 0, everything you just grow number 1.
Yeah, that's true. They got all, I'm just doing some real quick. It's about 4.2 million Americans play it today, and it's only been around since 2019. So you're talking a sport that grew up during COVID. It's got 4.2 million adults playing, kids playing it. So I can see it growing, and that's the great part. You need to have something that people play in the community. I personally don't, but I know that there's people who do enjoy basketball. I'm a personal person that used to get out there before I was, older. Yes. But, I've also heard some feedback from the community that, basketball isn't the sport that they see kids in their community out there playing. So that's a concern of theirs as well. So I want to be cognizant of that feedback we've got from our community. Because I think it's important. So I think
And you played there with me.
absolutely.
And you and I, everyone there was under 15 except for you and I.
Absolutely.
Kids absolutely play there. And I will have a line out the door of Norcross kids, none of which look like me. I got a lot of us saying, neighborhood basketball.
I'm not trying to argue the merits of what sports is the most popular sport or what sport kids play. For me, it's more about recreation, period, right? So how are we getting our community engaged? How are we getting the kids engaged in the community? I don't believe a particular sport has a license on what you look like, who you look like, your income level, or any of it, that kind of stuff. I do believe that we've got to give opportunity for recreation. That's our command for our community.
I think we agree
So-
that 2/3 of these be pickleball.
And so as I finish this, I would say that also I don't want us to be pigeonholed by the current basketball court. It needs construction anyway, and I think we need to use some creativity and think about how do we expand this to better make it fit for that particular park. It's one of our huge park, and not only do our citizens use it, for our school, a school in our community, Brookhaven Innovation Academy uses that on a regular basis. Well, I believe they're out there every single day for recess. So I'm trying to look at not only just the sport itself, but the whole entirety. I think we can take these preliminary drawings and expand upon them. Yeah, and I think that's why I'm agreeing with you on that we could expand if I'm gonna get 2 pickleball courts as well as a half court, if that's the desire of the rest of the council as well, in the community. I know I had heard some direct feedback, and I just want to make sure I voice that feedback that they didn't feel like a basketball court was the best sport in a particular area. But part of that, I think, and I'm speaking for those constituents, is from the parking issues that it's caused, the crime issues that it's caused.
Be fair, that's all too, I mean,
It's
that's
usually
all the last 2 years.
It is. And as far as I know, yes, it's all in the last 2 years. But what I would say is, I think a half court solves some of that issue as well. And because it is really, truly at the end of the day, we've got an opportunity while this thing is kind of halfway under construction to do something that improves safety, improves recreation in our community. So we can hit the trifecta here. Simple modifications of the space.
So is that the general consensus?
I'll bring it back to my.
Yeah. The other thing that I'd like to suggest when you're coming back with options is how to make it a flexible use so that we could expand it to 3 pickleballs, if basketball, we could back it off. I'm not even sure that's possible, but if we could look into that, is how can we make this as flexible as?
They can show it right up there on the right. That's 3 pickleball courts and a full court basketball.
Yeah, multi-court.
So there won't be one specific game going on, only one specific game to go on. While you know, based on what the choice is from a use. So if they come in to play basketball, let's say for instance, like how it is right now, basketball. One game could be going on on a school. So say,
I would limit that.
Yeah, we need to
dedicate-
eliminate.
I was giving an example.
Yes, I would dedicate it.
You have to, you know, a user, not the user, but wants to play another sport, have to wait on that game to know which one to play.
And I think the other thing I'd like to see is what type of services are available out there. Right now, the concrete asphalt, I tell you now, the person's kid, them tripping and falling on asphalt, and then tripping and falling on other types of surfaces like clay surfaces or synthetic turf surfaces. A little bit more forgiving from a wife who's actually put alcohol on a bad knee. So if we've got to do this project over again, there might be some opportunity to change the type of surface there is. There might be an associated cost that council has to decide. But I'd like to see what those options are out there. Because that might actually help more people play the sport because it's a better surface.
In that line, CBA Sports is a, are you familiar? The right here in Norcross. Yeah. Love to maybe have him come present exactly what Matt said and give us an idea of what options are up. Well, y'all can give us an idea, but I'd love to make sure we somehow get a Norcross.
So, for what it's worth, I would just drop there that I would like to see no basketball. We can't serve every single sport in the city. Something like what's happening there, but, you know, basketball.
And I think there's, to your point, I mean, we've got a large city, right? A small but large city. I think we've got some opportunity to potentially put basketball court at maybe our police station or a future police station or something like that as an alternative. And I'm speaking for our chief over here, but I get the thumbs up over here that he's like, that sounds like a great idea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Started. Have a full court basketball. Going to have court. Mitigates that. So you're actually eliminating the problem. Let's try to adults using by taking away.
All the people driving south and stuff like that. In the residential neighborhood, I don't think that's what any of our neighbors want. You know, we don't have, we want kids to be in, and adults to be able to use our parks. We're glad people come in, but we don't use CBD, or we don't use, hotel money for the parks.
So you're gonna come back with, like a couple of, and council, I think council. Staff. People there. All right, two to golf course, that's one foot, we can go.
I would just say, hey, basketball court, I only needed to strike. Oh, hold on. More kids can play.
Backwards, but that's.
Yeah.
We can look at some options, we'll look at surfaces, and I guess my question, you want to look at whether there's any opportunity to grade a little bit more space to better incorporate whatever you want. I mean, I don't know.
I think so, yes. We're losing space on one side. The only thing is that light pole is pretty darn close. Moving light pole, is that cheap?
But
Yeah.
let me tell you, the one thing that I think Pat has helped us with, is we were concerned that we would chop off the end of the existing, court over an ownership issue, and I think we've kind of resolved that we either already own it or really we will own it. It really can't be used for any other purpose. So we have the opportunity to reset our chain link fence, which really didn't follow the outline of the court anyway. But that was something that slowed us down a little bit, trying to figure out who and what slice of land there at the end closest to the house construction. Well, so.
One last thing too, right?
So are we coming back next month with more options for you and
It's pretty good done by county, so just some final, we get some closure or.
some air at the time?
Okay, Councilor Myers.
Yeah, so I think as we look at just, we're talking about the surface we're planning on, but, I think it's a full package where we're talking about upgrading this particular phase of our community. The lighting, working with our chief in terms of what security we need there, optimal, we need to have it gated where it's locked, and if you're reserving that space, you can, check the gate, to lock off, or let's think about the full package of what we're trying to accomplish here. I think that's something, well, we've got the opportunity, let's just address it. We may not do any of that, but, and I don't know how well the lighting is out there anyway, in our park. But something to consider.
Lighting, even with those, it's hard. It's hard to play out there after once it starts.
The mic looks like you have more. Yep, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, let's move down to 5, Council Dean Park, then the contract review.
This is for the contractor, agreement for Johnson Dean, and we had one that was approved last month. But after the approval, the contractor came back with a couple of edits. And the result of Mr. O'Brien's office, we did make the edits, and so this is the final version. It was more of a language. The initial one was based on construction, so we got some language that with dumpsters. But yes, kind of housekeeping. So Mr. O'Brien looked at it, he agreed, and this is the final version.
Looks like we're ready to move forward.
Yes, okay.
Okay, let's move, any questions before? If not, let's move to item 6, Norcross letter art installation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is my holiday. So can y'all hear me okay? So back again to talk about our work of art, the Norcross letter of installation. And I wanted to make a recommendation. We've gone out, we listened to what the feedback is that we got at the last meeting. And we had people talk about putting it on the Beaver Highway side, on some land that the city does not own yet. So the city might own that from them. And there was talk about putting it down in between the Brunswick and the library where those stairs go down. And that's been professionally landscaped, and the library has done some things there in that piece. And when I read the contract that was done between the city and the Brunswick, who gifted us this work of art, they asked for it, and that it is an art piece for doing selfies and photo opportunities. So the recommendation by staff is that we put it, this is probably hard for you to tell exactly where it is. We tried to mock it up, but this is as you're standing at the library or the balcony area is there in the center and looking up towards the fountain. This is on the right-hand side. There is a sidewalk that runs right in front of it. You don't have to see the back of the letters because it kind of sets within that landscaping. And we can put lighting, and there is some lighting that already exists. It's in the landscape lighting, just spotlight on it. And when we walked down towards the library and towards over to Brunswick, it really pops and stands out because it's bright, vivid colors. And it gives you a great place to do some photo opportunities. You may want to take out one tree or trim it back a little bit. But other than that, it was great. We have another picture that we can share and show you what it's on here. Okay.
Stage
Just
two.
from a different angle. Yeah. And then you also will see the piece has been built. So we're excited and ready to install it. And there's some samples of the big letters. They are 4 feet tall. All together, it'll be 30 feet long. And so we walked it, measured it, staked it to show what this would look like in that place. So I'm open to questions, comments, thoughts. Pardon?
Hopefully, lifespan of that.
I don't know.
What are
Metal.
what are the material, metal? So if kids are climbing on it, will it damage it?
My understanding is it's a thick metal, so it doesn't sound like it's a thin metal. But the only thing we can do to keep kids off of it is if we want to place it up on a building.
So the only thing is that if you did that, it will get climbed on. So if it's not capable of being climbed on, that's not a good location.
Yeah.
We do need to look at that, make sure that it's designed for that use, because that's an attractive thing to climb over.
Yeah, a lot of cities do this, and I do know that kids kind of lean against it. So this is 4 feet tall, but they could sit in the O and kind of sit on the S, but
Oh, they'll be standing on top of it in about 5 minutes. That's right. Are there
put it on
any,
top of the city hall building. I'm at a loss of where to put it and keep the kids off of it.
are there any unusual liabilities that we need to think about? Someone gets hurt on it?
So you've got the recreational property act, you've got. That doesn't mean somebody can't take a swing at you, but you have standard protection. That would work for that.
I think within the park, the one advantage this location has, which will have the climbing no matter probably where you put it is out of the way. We have events there. That sidewalk for someone that is, for example, in a wheelchair wants to take a picture, they can get the 30-foot width.
Oh, it's right on the
I
edge.
stood there.
Yeah, we stood
There's a
there.
sidewalk by just past that tree and
Yeah.
right in front of
Can you
that,
see it right here?
light bulb. You could be on the sidewalk with a camera with the entire artwork inside the frame, so. Don't have to go on the grass, but there is it's uphill, obviously, so. We're not gonna have a stage there for an event. I think the only thing we would choose is if someone wanted to set out a couple chairs or but even that was behind where we had our stage for the birthday celebration, so it's that is unobtrusive as you can get.
Walked around all the way down.
And you're saying that there's in the gift contract, it specifies really what part?
Well, we softened that, but Matt Mason started to be a little concerned at the softening of the language. We softened the language, but the original language suggested it would be the top of the parking deck if you read that original version. It was That was never really an option, because that's not our problem.
We put in, we closed that section of the contract with a floor at a place to be determined by.
So the parking deck was built by us, but it's not ours.
That property is not ours,
Even though we built it.
even though we built it. And we maintain it.
We didn't build it, we had an IGA fund building the park. So we would have access to the park, our citizens would have access to it.
I would say if a child falls off something, you'd rather have to fall on grass than on.
Well, I guess, any other questions before I weigh in?
I would, we ruled out putting it on top of the library, on top of Brunswick. Yeah, because I'm telling you, kids are gonna be jumping around on this, and they are gonna slide down the O, and then get stuck between the O and R, and they're gonna get stuck. They're gonna hit the points of the metal. I mean, it's amazing how they prevent this, but they are gonna consider this a climbing course, not an art installation. So I don't know if we have an expert that we can talk to who talks about hard safety or hard, because it's, for us not to consider that.
Not sure the expert on kids. But I will say this. We only have one time.
For kids.
That's not how we operate.
So have we talked to the library about putting it where the original thought was, is on that? Okay.
Yeah, the original place that, when I came into this, because you know, I inherited this, when I came into it, the original spot was like, if you're facing the bathroom and your back's filling up part and the library's right here, it was in a pad area to the left of the bathroom.
Right.
And the library did not like it there because it definitely blocked their view of the park where they had that big window display.
So actually, I was thinking on the deck
Yeah,
or near.
I've never heard of that as a suggestion. I don't know heard of that. The one place that I was taken to.
That was, there was always discussion early on that this sign would be visible from the front. That was,
I didn't hear that.
I don't see any document that suggested that.
What I described,
That doesn't mean that you couldn't do that.
the way I described the location, which is, I think, why even so, I don't know, the last 12 or after this now. But, it's called the Library Plus, and nobody knows what that means. So that's what we did was, we put in the find your religion in one wall.
the library plaza is the top of the parking.
That was
Yeah,
my
that would be the
interpretation, but
That'd be the
as
most-
Pam said, the first
plaza
place
not-
that I think we were shown was,
Yeah, after the meeting where, after a staff meeting, right, this on the couch trying to find a location. And I should have kept my mouth shut. Is, I was taken to that area right to the left of the bathrooms. And that's where I was told that they can determine a good location.
so if you were
And
inside the
that's what I
library,
do.
That's the plaza as regards.
It's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the plaza to hold, we walked up there to hold a 30-foot sign. I mean, there's all those little gardening bits.
Yeah, but
and
we
little
don't,
walkways.
the county has to agree on it. And they're not a party to the contract.
Right.
Well, it's part of the contract, but I mean, you say they won't agree to it. I don't know that we've asked them.
What about, does this have to be displayed horizontally? What if this was vertical, the letters were vertical up and down, like a pole, and then sat down on the.
so the way it was built,
Actually.
the points of attachment, each letter is flat, even the O and S's are flat, so that the attachment points are on the base. So you have to have some type of a pole with platform so that each letter would be on a platform, because they're designed to be installed with the bolts going downward to the base. But
And then put on a
now,
black cap.
I mean, just looking at this, you know,
Can we look at a map, maybe? I think we pull up, just Google map. Pull up a map real quick, maybe?
apparently I have. I would be happy with this.
It's true, we cannot instruct them, we cannot.
But first I have to figure out how to get off the stage.
You're mentioning taking those babies.
We may have to trim this one tree, like trim it up just in the bottom.
But that oak tree right in front?
This, that skinny.
Hang on, sorry.
But anyway,
Where's
there's a,
Google? I'll find it.
they have to trim it up a little bit. May not have to, but
So one thought, as you were talking, if you wanted to mount it on that wall, put a platform sticking out from the wall, so a metal platform, and have it horizontally, you would probably avoid your children's ages, but at some point, someone is going to rope themselves down from the plaza above and still do it. I mean, the challenge is, any way that you do this, someone will find a way.
kind of.
All you have to do is drive to Atlanta and see how many of the bridges have been tagged by someone willing to walk up the railroad line and lower themselves over the side. But if you want to make it less likely for a 5-year-old to climb on it.
I mean, when it's sitting right there, it's a giant invitation. It's not in question whether or not it's okay. It's sitting right there, so of course it's okay. And you can see this because we have a toy in Thrasher Park that has a dome over it. You're supposed to hold on to the dome and to go around like this. What do? They get on top of the dome, which is incredibly.
Hey, I have
Say,
kids
here,
that climb on the
please,
outside.
You want to do it? You can drive.
And also, no one's allowed to get in the pond.
But these exist, like, you know, Swanee has it, I love my parks, Swanee, they have their letters, I mean, there's a lot of these around, so I'm sure they're dealing with that issue. I didn't ask them about the kids calling on it, but I asked where the location was, because they see it at Swamp Center, and it's in the back part of the residential. There for people to go and do photo ops, and then they tag it and post it on it. So, but I need to ask them about if there's any issues.
I mean, that part of the children's play area, you have to play that out there, so some of it might just sort of be like you're saying, location.
So we're looking here
Closer to the,
or here?
no,
No, pass this out right there.
Okay.
There's a wall there.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost far enough, Josh, that maybe, kids are gonna switch it out. Right there. And then we have a pad here we talked about, and then we also,
This was the proposal at one point.
there's a roundabout there now, right?
Well, the challenge is looking out
From the
the front of the library, it would be obstructed by a 4-foot by 30-foot piece of artwork to prevent you from seeing over the park.
Well, and another thing that we ran into with certain locations like that one would have been, who gets the backside of the Norcross letters, the library or the majority of the property?
Oh, I would say the library is the front. People can take a picture of it and see the back of it.
But everyone in the park will see the back of the sign.
I think it's a park, they want from the front. Yeah. In any event, the contract says we choose where it goes, not the library. So if this is best, if this council decides this is where it goes, then
well, the question that begs to be asked, the park of this place.
John, we're going that direction.
No,
Bill has his hand up.
Trust me, I do not.
But it's not a sign.
It's almost like it's a solution looking for a problem.
So help me.
No, I can't see from there.
I can't see from this.
It's ready.
Evidence here to south end, I mean, or for the railroad track, as the vehicle coming into the city.
It just needs to be somewhere where it's safe, because people are gonna wanna do photo shoots, you know, they're gonna decide that it needs to be.
So one of the questions I think I had last time, let me get it. But, it's ready today. And be uninstalled, can be installed and uninstalled in other locations. I'm trying to think out loud here. It's obviously not solidified, but I know that we've got some other buildings that we plan on commissioning sometime in the future. That might be another option for that particular location. There are also other options I'm really, you guys understand what I'm saying, and I can't say,
So what your suggestion is that we put it in a location such as this, but with the eye toward being temporary.
correct. And if we do see a problem in this year, this summer when kids are gonna be on it, we need to be prepared to help pivot quickly. We can give direction to our staff. To pivot quickly. But that's a, I don't know if that's the best answer, but I'm just trying to come up with something that may solve getting this out there today and then looking forward to the future where the perfect opportunity for it.
There you go.
That's what I was.
We're gonna be on a concrete track. So I don't know how movable that is.
Well, you'd lose the pad, you'd have to remove the bolts into the pad, and you have to pay for an installation. The vendor is going to install this for us. There's a fee we have to pay for that. $3,500.
I guess the challenge that I have with temporary is, it only takes one kid flipping and passion that has on some pointed piece of metal that you can think about, it would never like run. And you can't rewind.
Yeah, I can't foresee, in all the letters I've ever seen in any major city or all my travels, they've yet to ever see those letters not have people on. Period. Like, I mean, that almost is what they're for, right? I want to take a picture of one, leaning against it, on it, whatever, and to your point, it's a park with children. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna do exactly what the adults would do, especially if they see the adults doing it. So I'm conflicted very much like you, but I understand you have something. Where do we put it? I've got a really great idea for a permanent location. That's not ready yet. So
Does it have wet feet, does it plain slash grass on the feet?
So your warehouse.
I guess I'm conflicted because I don't want to warehouse it either. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of artwork. It showcases the city. I think it's got some really cool designs on it. So I'm not a fan of.
We went around this building with the footprint where. It's really a gateway.
Yeah, it's big enough to be a gateway sign. I can think of a perfect location for it. It's just not available.
It just can't be a gateway sign. We got a place to park and get out to the building. So that's what we're gonna do.
What do you have there in Memorial Park? You're talking about what a little sign there at the side.
Or here's an option. What about our old library that we is now city property, put it at the old library temporarily? Until we find a permanent location. It's on Buford Highway, it's a gateway, per se. It's large. Kids aren't gonna go over there, and it's not gonna be the photo op you think it's gonna be, but it's still there. And no one's there right now, right? I mean,
I think we have homeless people living there now.
good.
I think we have homeless people. What do you call them, Mary Beth? Urban dwellers, urban campers.
Maybe we can take that offline and discuss that, but, that might be an option. It doesn't in the park. It's our decision. We own the property today, and it's a gateway, and it'll be seen by millions of travelers on Buford Highway every day.
Another idea, if it's too far away, we need a gateway sign.
We would argue this is not a gateway. We have a design for gateways, right?
Yeah.
We try to follow your guidelines. This is a piece of artwork. And the one challenge is if you put it any place too remote, not only will we have people climbing on it, we'll have more people trying to tag it. So part of the idea here is to have it where it's well lit, where we can put a camera to keep it under observation. Doesn't mean that anywhere you put it, someone will climb on it or try to damage it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have people tagging our library. A former, maybe we do.
And I know we have standards, but in my opinion, it is a good list. And it's a sign that you can see. If you're in California, this is sort of similar to that. I mean, it's hard. It says, it should say Norcross somewhere, Norcross.
There's no room at that new market up here, the CBS pharmacy right there, at the corner of Buford Highway.
There's a rider warranty.
We don't own the property, but yes, there is space.
And that's the gateway coming to town, where there's not gonna be kids down there. It's not a place for kids that might go play.
Anywhere someone's gonna take selfies.
I don't think the kid issue is something we can quickly get around unless we're chasing a parking class, and that's not doable. So I just think if we put it in a place where kids aren't invited to play, that's. Then you put it in a little playground, your kids stop, jump up, and climb all over this thing.
I think we need to move on from there.
Okay, all right, well, we can.
So I need to do some more homework.
Yeah,
I won't even say you need to,
And
I
I'll
think,
do it.
yeah, I think we need to,
Talk.
yeah, I don't, we beat it up pretty well tonight.
yeah,
Because
we-
If we need to store it until we have a good solution, we'll store it.
Yeah, the vendor's been patient.
What if we went back to Matt and asked Matt for some more ideas, told him what the challenges were, and asked him, just, there you have it.
Yeah.
He liked this. He stick to that.
He doesn't have to.
It faces his project that they paid for.
Yeah, we like, we kind of do the dead horse on this. We got some big wing for the homeless people. We're kind of all over.
Mama,
We're gonna-
y'all
we're
wanna call me?
gonna- Okay, let's move to Norcross Gallery and Studio. Councilman Becker, I think this was yours.
Want me to, so I'll try and start to steer. Let me know. So there's been kind of an informal process of reaching out, what was called Kazoo, has a contract with the city for the use of our property and pays for that to make some repairs. And so some things were accommodated by, I think, our public works utilities, park staff. And going down the list, Tracy sent our building inspector over to take a look at the property. If you're not familiar, it's called a shed, but it had plumbing in it, it had electrical in it, it had sewer, there's a gas pipe in it, and it's cement block construction. The windows have been boarded over. So what it looks like is that's a prime opportunity for them to expand usable space. But to do that, it really needs to meet current code for an occupied space. And that requires some things that they didn't ask for, but it would really make that out to be a usable space. And Tracy, you were over there, and I think you found that they're using the main building very well, and they're packed to the edges there. But to make it accessible to the public and usable for occupancy means it has to have a second doorway, which means that you have to build a doorway in a cement block building. That's doable, costs a little bit. Also, they had asked for a window air conditioner in addition to windows, but you need to have at a minimum a split unit, so you have both heating and cooling. It has to be conditioned space. That's doable. So the idea is we may need to tweak our agreement because the agreement talks about premises. If you look at the site, the shed is part of what the improvements are on the site. There's one place in the agreement that sounds singular, so I don't know whether shed was in it, but if you wanted to move forward with this proposal, we'd suggest, I think that space usable. It's got good seamless roof on it. It has good bones. It has the capability of being used for significant space. And I don't know what the square footage is, but it's huge. It's bigger than any shed I've seen. There's a drainage problem in the parking lot. We've already put security lighting in there that did that a few weeks ago. They come through impact to ask for assistance, and my suggestion that the $15,000 is upset limit, but if we're going to go in and make that usable, we want to do everything that really needs to be done to make that usable for conditioned space for people to have classes. So I don't know if I've left anything out, but I think it's just a matter of if we want to embrace arts, it's a lot like going up the hill, then, you know, an investment of money in our building facilitates that.
And to modify the contract to include the shaded part of the building, that's not good.
Yeah, so I pulled the, this, premises describes, all the land and the improvements on the exhibits, and the aerial exhibit shows people. So I don't know that we need to include the shed. I mean, if you want to, we can, but I don't think it's necessary. As indicated, there's compensation that is being paid. On page 3, repairs and maintenance. The city's responsible for major structural repairs, roof and so forth, and Hudson is responsible for all regular and normal maintenance. But as regards what Eric was talking about, that's 14 alterations and additions. The manager, that's what the president is, can't make no structural repairs, improvements, modifications without the written consent of the city. And then those alterations and which I think that would be included in Eric's description would be at the the way this is written would be at the expected budget. So that's just what it said. We can change it, but
I have found, and it's actually, the city adopted a management agreement. That's how we manage business.
yes, with the exception of doing an IGA with the VDA.
So can you give us the background on how we ended up with that? They did a bidding process, how long that process, because it could be that the city decides our next revenue is go for another way.
Yeah, they're only good for 30 days, otherwise you have to put out public bid. And if you can't lease, the leasing the city property, others, has to be through a bidding process. If the leases or the possession is contemplated to be more than 30 days. Right. So that gives,
How long ago?
it's kind of automatically removable every 30 days.
Unless somebody decides that.
Unless we decide to change management. And that gives the city a lot of control. Number one, you know, if you're gonna try to put it out to bid, the highest responsible, not the bidder, and you didn't give it to them because the use might be something that's antithetical to what you're trying to create, then you can get into some bidding contest. So the management agreements have some advantage. They're 30 days, and the city gets to pick the manager. And so that's what we've been doing with Kudzu and some others in the city. And that's how we came out. In terms of how we got Kudzu to do this,
They were in place for years.
yeah, I've been in place for years too, but I don't remember that one, how we got to them. There was other council, and that was how they considered.
The reason I'm asking the final question is, if this council decides in 2 or 3 months, or even a year, that parcel is more valuable as an NDA parcel or EDA parcel, there's no guarantee for the leaseholder that they're going to be there in 30 days, correct?
Okay, so the manager.
The manager.
Yeah, okay, no, there isn't. You can change manager. Now, if you wanted to do like a cotton gin with dozen property, you could, with an IGA, with the EA.
Okay, so are they paying for them? Ultimately, who's paying?
Pay for what?
The improvement on the.
Well, we do.
We pay it, or we,
You'd have to change the management.
The management agreement today says the lease, it's like a lease, leasehold improvements are up to
Look
date.
at that,
It would be like that.
yes.
So today's agreement says Kudzu would pay for this improvement.
Pay for alterations and additions, which I think. is what, we've been talking.
How much money do we earn from this lease or management agreement?
Okay, the city shall pay 10% of the net income received by Kudzu for $500 per month, whichever is greater.
but the reason I'm asking this is, I would hate for them, regardless, if they're gonna put this money into it, you would think they want some sort of guarantee that they're gonna be there.
Well, this doesn't sound like what we're asking.
We're suggesting the city pays for it.
Our lease says that they're gonna pay for it, so we don't know what the city's gonna vote for this, so we might wanna make sure that they understand that if they really want to improve it, it could be a cost for them.
Or you can change the,
Or we say the
17 to say that maybe increase the rent.
Okay, so
Pay for the alteration.
here's the question then. What happens when Lionheart wants us to do some improvement? Or the crossing wants us to do improvement? Especially the crossing.
The crossing's a lease, right?
That is a true lease.
Yeah.
That's like 7 or 8 years.
We did work with it.
It's part of
Part of
the
the
leasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's other
The
city
tenant-
properties.
TIs,
that-
tenant improvements. are detailed.
Yeah, I'm just, what are we opening here when we're doing leaseholder, management holder improvement as we acquire more city land? We talk about consistency, maybe we need to be consistent,
Okay, just to check. one.
or provide some sort of longer term lease on this parcel so that we know that the investment the city made is gonna have the continuity that we expect.
Well, the investment that the city's making doesn't, I mean, if we're getting $500 a month, so we're getting,
We're investing in this parcel being used as this.
huh?
We're investing in this parcel being used as this purpose. Without an idea of what that may look like to the EDA or the DDA.
No, it's a good point. And not only that, but we'd be investing $15,000 into something that we only get $6,000 a year.
Yeah, but ideally with that one.
That's-
But it's $15,000, it's a nominal fund. It's a nominal ask, but.
And it could be less. I'm the author of 15,000 because they started with about 6,000. But it's when we realized that they likely want to have people in that building, not just be storing it. And so the question, I think, Councilmember, to your point, for me at least, is if you think that a few years from now, we're going to have this part of a development in that area and the buildings are going to be torn down,
200 feet away.
then you may not recover the investment. But if you think that this will continue to be used, whether it's by Norcross Galleries or for another use, we're making improvements that
You're improving your own property.
create opportunities for the city, whether it's for this use or they move up the hill into a new cultural arts center, this property gets used for another purpose.
At the end of the day, they ask about a problem. It's a consistency in what we, how we handle processes. And it's, are we long-term looking? We already know that the designer flowers and the auto shop, we've talked about that in our LCI study. The Beaver Highway master plan, which we just approved a few months ago, has that doing something else. Carlisle House maybe being reworked. This is right across from both of them. It could be as far as an assemblage. We should be planning long term.
Yeah.
But the ask isn't much, and those projects. are years
The
away.
ask isn't much, but it's a mid-year ask. We could also put this off to putting in the 22 budget, which is a more routine way of doing this. I mean, I don't see that this is a crisis that we have to react to this month or not.
Yeah, on that point, I think we're far enough into the year. I get nervous suggesting use contingency when we're in the first month of a 12-month year, but we're getting towards halfway into the year, so it's modest, but it's
The basketball, pickleball.
and that was the other one that we have two items on this agenda that both suggested contingency as a funding source.
I mean, the pickleball thing has some urgency to it. We have to do something about that basketball court in order to alleviate the safety issue. Whether we close it down altogether, we would have to be an option, but I mean, the fact is that that's something that's got some urgency to decide on that. This looks to me like may or may not be good use of our money in the sport, but we can put it through the regular order and go into the next.
Well, I thought maybe, original ask, here, room. Or to repair.
After Tracy did, I guess, there was that additional item to be taken care of. To make the building accessible for us to use, for folks to use.
Okay, so. If you gotta use storage.
No, they're gonna try to make the classroom so you have extra space to do other stuff. It's not storage. Right now, it's storage because they can't do anything else with it because it's not up to par. And if you see this about ours, you would try to help the Norcross Park.
I 100% agree. I would just say that we should be transparent with them, that our Buford Highway Master Plan has some uses for that area that may not be compatible with their long-term plan. And that we need to be transparent with them that this could be a temporary fix and we embrace you, but you mentioned yourself, it might be moving. So I just want us to be transparent.
Yeah, do that.
I do think that's that's the crux of what my issue but conversation piece here is that if we were to follow what we've approved in terms of master plan studies, this particular area would be reimagined at some point in time. I don't believe in 10 years. So I've heard that out there. I don't believe it should take us 10 years to reimagine some of what the highway master plan is.
It's an assemblage.
It's an assemblage. But some may take 10 years to finish the whole plan, but I don't know if this particular property would be in that 10-year span. What I would say is, to Customer Mason's point, communication is key. And I've heard other visions that we talked about, and we'll talk more about in our vision session, some of what we want to do with art as a holistic piece. And maybe this place is only a temporary holding space. Hopefully, it's only a temporary holding space. But what we want to imagine art to be in the city of Norcross in terms of a facility. So I look at it as it's for sure a temporary fix if we were to imagine what our vision are. The question comes on, do we care or do we are concerned about the return on investment being $6K per year, 15K investment? I would suggest a roughly 2.5 year payback. So are we going to move on this property 2.5 years? If we don't, then it sounds like a win-win, but our legal has also told us that it improves the value of that particular location by doing this modification. In any course, improving that property value is a win if you're ever going to move it. So I see it as a benefit from that perspective that we don't really lose if we do this. And then speaking of when we decide to put this into action, if there's no urgency, for me, if there's no urgency, I like it to follow the budget process. If it's deemed to be an urgent issue, then we can address that in line of urgency there. But if it's not an urgent issue, then let's just let it follow the budget process. It sounds like a great idea either way, because when I improve our value, and we're trying to get to taxpayer dollars. That's it.
That's what the roof is.
Part of the shed.
Yeah, that needs to be.
It has a new roof. The roof has been replaced. Mary Beth, do you know? I mean, if you go by, it has a seam metal roof that I think was put in at the same time as the roof of the main structure. The issue that they had was that it wasn't sealed well to the roof. So its best use now is for storage, but they've historically had storage problems. I think reading the material that they sent to Impact, they had materials stored in there that were destroyed. The city removed everything, re-roofed both structures, but they still have issues because it's still not a sealed structure. That's part of what they were looking to do is to. I think we put the new roof on for both.
Yeah.
Impacted. They're the managers.
Because you have the range is
the city, but then they get allocated.
It's earmarked for
Earmarked to
impact.
impact. Very similar to one.
So, CMR, impact, share in the cost. Associated cost. I think I mentioned that.
I didn't hear that before yet.
And the impact on the enterprise one, right? I was expecting operating that one.
No.
No, it's, the money that comes in is earmarked for impact, but it goes into the city general fund.
Okay, so, Councilman,
Well, it sounds like when you look at our manager agreement anyway, because there's a new, president is no longer. Yeah, so if we need to update the other aspect. So if we're updating for that, I guess, then we need to update it. Yeah, so if we have to update for that, we can add some other updates. Well, such as if we would pay for. We have to update that.
We would, and just so you know, we've got a line item for that.
sounds like this. A little bit more,
And there, yeah, I mean, my question was, is it the roof? Really, I mean, the roof was repaired, we fixed the leak. It's not a sealed building, right? It's not an air conditioned building, but it's.
I think that's something that we.
Yeah, if it's something that we need to take care of immediately from the leaking building, then we should do that, I think. But if it's just an upgrade to that building, I think we should wait.
I think, well, if we're not gonna move forward now, then I think we need to make sure they understand they cannot have classes in there. That does not be building code.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how big this thing is.
It's advertised, because it's small. Okay. But we, in order for us to fix the immediate problem with the leaking roof, we have to update our management.
No.
It has a roof. It's, the building is, I don't think the building is well sealed between, Mary Beth, do you have any better sense of this between the, or Tracy, you were in it?
Well, I just said to John, the repair the replace, but there was, they had mold remediation, there's an issue before you can do it. John, take care of the roof, there's no replacement. So I think this is kind of required for that. The mold.
It was not removed when we fixed the roof. It was not taken care of.
No, we did not use them to fix the mold. And everything from my cosmetic. We put additional light.
And the city is responsible for that.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like we need, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine moving forward with the next month, we get the backup standard. Decide at the city council meeting, not next month, yeah, in our regular meeting, pardon me? Yeah, the regular meeting, if we can get that back up, then we can have further discussion around the budgeting cycle, such as some stuff can be handled outside of the budget. If this is, like Matt said, an urgent issue, then I would like us to have the opportunity to, even if we table it, our next meeting.
But we do need more information.
Yeah, I mean, there, in terms of the mold remediation, are we fixing mold remediation? Let's just get some clarity on.
I don't know that there's agreement that there's a mold issue to remediate. I think from what John was in there, right, Mary Beth?
That was Hudson. They had a wish list. That was one of their mold remediation.
When we were in there, we did like that, mold, but it's beautiful now, just storage built on this.
But I think if we get those clarified, I'd be comfortable with it. Make that question clarified.
don't know, do we have enough time or is it better to do the work session? Well, yeah, we don't approve the agenda doesn't get the mayor and the council, I mean, they can always tell us beforehand, this will be removed from the agenda. But we don't have the information.
Right.
The mayor
So
said.
can we make sure we understand what you're looking for 2 weeks?
For Councilmember Myers, like, understand if there's an urgency, and if there is, what's that urgency? The outside of the budget cycle, but it is, you can handle it, it's not a problem, just confirm we follow our process. And then the second question is, which I think actually, Tracy just answered, is this intended to be stored or occupied? And so, it's intended to be stored, it's going to be occupied with secondary costs. So, but we don't.
Or we believe it's occupied?
My question to you, because this is very important. This is the same management agreement we have for Lionheart. If we're editing and changing management agreements, what happens if Lionheart comes to us and says, hey, we want a new interior or something that would fall outside of our
It's
management.
not the exact same, but with regard to maintenance and the alterations and so forth.
Mary Beth, they have asked recently, haven't they, about
Yes,
seating in Lionheart?
well, that is the ownership of it, but we saw that. So, but there's other things, it's like cotton in. You have to start pulling out contracts, and do responses, so maybe start doing HVAC, interior plumbing, so that's what we look at. That's kind of what we do. In terms of repair.
For those organizations? Largely, they come through.
For this one year today.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
You
hear
said they want.
Oh, the individuals, like Cotton Bean, they want to, Lionheart wants us to do something. Because we want that, so they like this.
Who's the point of contact?
Well, it was Kathy, she's retired, so we have a new person now.
I just don't have a problem with this ask, it's just, we need to know if Lionheart could have bigger asks. We're setting a precedent that, we're approving this ask, and then Lionheart says, well, what about this? And they're always asking.
But Mary Beth, they kind of go through Public Works asking for improvements.
Yes, and then I. pulled
As
out-
though it were a department here asking us for something in this building.
Yeah, and then I pulled out the lease, and I started defining what's structural, what's material, what's interior, what's it's stuff, I was out for the tax office. It's pretty well defined in this business.
Some of these guys are doing work that we should be really working plans, we should be issuing permits. Not that we necessarily have to charge them for permits, but sometimes they're going way down in the weeds, and you really want somebody looking at the plans, and you want the ability to actually work that they're doing. So everything you have to take into consideration for everything we have, but start work, and you just stop in the middle of it, and then you never saw a plan. So I think we're gonna get into that level.
And that's why we sent the building inspector with Tracy over to take a look at our building to understand and realizing that they weren't necessarily asking for everything that they really needed to use that building the way they'd like to.
Sorry, we hijacked your agenda item for some bigger issues, but I think we need to solidify, in my mind, how we're gonna have consistency built up around the ask, because it already sounds like that we're doing improvements, but maybe outside of where we, well, where that looks to be. But, yeah, how are we, if we're changing out seating, doesn't seem that that's the responsibility of the city, in my mind.
If we really want to see the.
And there are different uses of an operation, so it isn't necessarily actually lots.
but it's your call. We've got to press it. Yours. It's our call that you need to make sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've done everything I've been told to do so far,
Okay.
on all of these management agreements in the United States.
I agree with that. So where do we move from here? I mean, we have a proposal in front of us that we need to kind of address, but we have all these lingering outstanding questions about management agreements and how they operate inside the city. Inside of our protective system.
I think we want to sit in there and just work yourself. Issues that need to be addressed. Council, did you have anything else to add to?
I'm good.
And I've got the management agreement, so I'll work with Pat on the fact that we need to revisit that anyway, because we're not dealing with Kudzu, we're dealing with Norcross Galleries. There's different persons running that. And also because of the fact that we're now proposing to make improvements to our facility at our expense, which is inconsistent, but certainly within our rights.
So you'll try to have those answers for the next regular council.
Yes, sir.
That particular point in time, we'll move forward or. Okay, so we good here? All right, I think that is the last issue. Yeah. Staff is here to talk about real estate.
Maybe I'd make a motion for example, for real estate personnel and legal.
We have a motion before.
Second.
And a second. Is that? Any objection to this? Heard that, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Right.
Opposed,